We have another fantastic panel coming up, the Petrochemical Leadership Panel. This panel discussion with our site managers, plant managers, is really at the heart of what the conference is all about. It's one of our original conversations that we had 11 years ago when we brought in our plant managers and site managers in the region. I want to introduce our moderator, Jim Griffin. If you do not know Jim, he's a former plant manager himself. He is a former chairman of ECMA, East Harris County Manufacturers Association. He's also a former chairman of the Economic Alliance. Currently, Jim runs the Center for Petrochemical and Energy Technology at San Jacinto College's Central Campus. I see Jim has made it in. Looks like everybody's unmuted. Jim, I'll turn it over to you now to introduce just what is a fantastic panel, and I'm sure the discussion is going to be great. So Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Chad, thank you very much for the very generous introduction. We're excited. We have a great panel today. Before I introduce the panelists, I want to give you a little bit of data on the petrochemical industry. So generating $617 billion a year in economic output, petrochemical activity along the Houston Ship Channel sustains nearly 3 million direct, indirect, and induced jobs. So let me say that again, 3 million direct, indirect, and induced jobs, and provides more than $35 billion in local, state, and federal tax revenue. The region is home to the largest petrochemical complex in the world and generates 42% of all the specialty chemicals in the United States. So that's the water that these people swim in every day. We are so excited on this panel. And our panelists include Kate Lightfoot from ExxonMobil, Kim Foley, LyondellBasell, and Cathy Culpepper, INEOS. Now we could read their bios, but we have 40 minutes and their bios would take all 40 minutes. These people are so accomplished in everything that they've done in their career, but our crackerjack experts, Economic Alliance undercover people found out some specifics that are not in the bios. So let me talk to you a little bit about Kate Lightfoot. So Kate grew up in Southern Arkansas, and Kate, we understand that you were quite a swimmer and a water skier. And when you went to college, you didn't know what a chemical engineering degree was. You found that out while you were at college. And so we share that with everybody, especially the students, because that tells you when you go to college, you're checking things out, you're investigating, and here's someone that runs one of the largest petrochemical facilities on the Gulf Coast. And when she entered college, didn't know she was going to be a chemical engineer. So Kate, we're really excited to have you on the team today. Brings us to Kim Foley. Kim, we understand you're quite a cyclist, and for those people in the audience that like to bicycle, Kim has run many MS 150s, so you know what that commitment is like for the MS 150. But she has even a loftier goal, and she has a lifetime goal of raising $100,000 through cycling for the charity. Kim, that's excellent. And that takes us to Cathy Culpepper. And what you may not know about Cathy, some of you know she hails from the great state of Tennessee, Nashville, but her family's Canadian, and her father played NHL hockey. And if you follow hockey a little bit, of course, the Stanley Cup has just started, and kind of interesting because it's a Florida team and a Texas team in a game that was primarily dominated by Canadians. And Cathy's father did the puck drop, the inaugural puck drop at the 1998 Preds game in Nashville, Tennessee. So pretty cool. She hails from a hockey family. Kate, Kim, and Cathy, which by the way, the over-under is 4. That means that people think that I'm going to miss your names, Kate, Kim, and Cathy, at least 4 times. I will do my best to, if I was a betting person, I would probably say I'm going to go north of 4, but let me do my best here. So let me start off with the first question. I'm going to ask all of our panel members to answer this first question. And it's to really tell us about your roles with your company. So Kate, tell us about your role with ExxonMobil.
So I'm the site manager of the Baytown Chemical Plant. We actually have several plants and leadership structures in the Baytown area for ExxonMobil. So we've got a refinery manager, there's and a leadership team, and there's a manager of our Baytown Olefins plant, and then also our Mont Belvieu plastics plant. So from a manufacturing facility point of view, we actually have 4 plants. So I'm responsible for the chemical plant, but we also work together to make sure, just as a Baytown area, we're managing consistently within ExxonMobil, but also the way we represent ourselves to the communities in which we operate and the governments that we interact with, whether it's city, county, state, or federal level. We work very closely together, and all have different external roles. I serve on the ECMA board of directors, and I'm also part of the Texas Chemical Council board of directors. So that's been really interesting. I had never had those type of opportunities in the roles that I had before. So I've learned a lot and have really gotten to enjoy working with other site managers. Kim and I have been on boards together. And so that's been fun to meet people in similar roles. So I do a lot of external work as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Kate. Kate, how long have you been with ExxonMobil?
So I joined as an experienced hire in 2002. I worked for Albemarle Corporation for a few years out of college and then joined ExxonMobil in Baytown. And I've actually been in manufacturing in Baytown for the last 18 years, minus 1 year. I actually went to our spring campus and it was in more of a business support role. But otherwise, I've been in Baytown, both at the chemical plant and the Baytown Olefins plant for the last 18 years.
Very cool. That's a rare thing in our industry.
It really is.
Kim, tell us about your role with LyondellBasell.
So, as Kate mentioned, about a year ago, I left our Channelview manufacturing facility. That's where I met Kate and actually did a conference similar to this with Cathy. And I came into our corporate office to run HSE for LyondellBasell. It's been a very exciting role with COVID. And then about 2 months ago, I also took on the global engineering and turnaround organization as well. So I've got 32 years with LyondellBasell. I've been in manufacturing, finance, strategic planning, supply chain, and now in HSE and engineering. So.
And how long, Kim, have you been in the new role?
About a year.
Well,
It'll be a year in October.
Seasoned veteran. And Cathy, tell us about your role with INEOS.
Sure. So I stepped across the fence, I guess starting January 1. So I was in Styrolution. Many of you guys, I knew from the INEOS Styrolution days. So moved over to the O&P side of the INEOS business January 1 of this year. So the role that I'm in now, I'm the site director for the site here in Chocolate Bayou. So that compromises a large site, 2,600 acres. 2 ethylene crackers, several polypropylene units, and we also have some co-hosted partners on site too, both LyondellBasell as well as our INEOS oligomers business as well. So it's been a tumultuous year, so knowing that I was coming into a huge debottleneck project on one of our crackers, I don't think any of us anticipated the pandemic. So that's created some new challenges and opportunities, but in all honesty, I'm having a ball. It's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying getting to know the folks on site, getting to spend time in different businesses. So it's been a lot of fun.
So what was it like, the switch from the Styrenics business to olefins?
Well, I think that those of you that know anything about INEOS, we're a federation, so there's multiple businesses under the umbrella of INEOS, all of which are independently operated. So everyone has its own culture, has its own systems and procedures. So it's been a lot of fun coming into, what was one of INEOS's really big businesses to one of the other really big businesses. Very different cultures, very different in the way that they do things. Styrolution global, around the globe. O&P is North America. So that's been a little bit different, but it's been great. I think it's been a lot of fun to focus on different things and also bring some of that different perspective. So I've really enjoyed the opportunity to kind of understand how different parts of the organization behave a little differently and look at things differently.
Sure. Well, we're going to stay with Cathy on this next question. So your role's up to site and plant manager and the corporate role that Kim currently has. That type of path has lots of ups and downs. I've heard plant managers say one day you're drinking the wine and the next day you're stomping the grapes. It's one of those things where there's a lot of interesting history. So Cathy, tell us a little bit about that path, where you started and some key decisions you made along the line.
Well, I have to tell you, I had an affinity with your comment on Kate. So when I went to college, I had to pick a major, right? And I had no idea what to pick. So in my mind, I said, well, I like chemistry and I like math. Chemical engineering sounds like a great thing. So, also of that same ilk of really didn't know what I was going to be doing, but fortunately, it ended up being a good fit for me. So I've spent my career in manufacturing in various roles, various plants, various companies, and really enjoy the manufacturing arena. I've had the opportunity over different positions to explore some of the business side and the strategic pieces, which I quite enjoy. It's a lot of fun to come back to kind of the manufacturing arena and help people to understand how the business functions and why do we make the decisions we make. So I think, really creating business owners from everybody on your plant side, I think is a lot of fun. So to answer your question, Jim, so I can remember as a young engineer being approached by one of my leaders about what I want to consider an operations leadership role. And I asked if he was crazy. So it was with a lot of prodding that I stepped into kind of my first operations leadership role. And, while incredibly challenging, I really enjoyed it. And the thing that I really enjoyed, as an engineer, you enjoy the technical and the logical and the problem solving, but I really enjoyed the people side of it. So really, understanding how people function and understanding how to help people work together collaboratively. So I've really enjoyed that. And over the years, as I've kind of moved into different roles, really developing people and challenging the status quo and helping us, taking us places that we didn't think we could ever go is kind of what I've really found fun. So, for me, about every 4 to 5 years, when the curve starts to flatten, I'm ready to jump into something new and try something new. I kind of like to be going 100 miles an hour with my hair on fire, and that's been pretty consistent.
Well, thanks for that history. It's interesting when we talk to plant managers, we all kind of started as an engineer in an engineering role, but we quickly get to the people side of that. And every time you talk to a successful plant manager, it's about teamwork and people and leadership.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey? Kate,
Did
tell
you
us.
say Kate or Kim?
Yeah, I said Kate, but I need to pronunciate a little bit better. Kate, tell
Oh,
us.
that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. So, I was in many different kind of the normal manufacturing path from being, unit support to some of the early career leadership roles. And, a lot of what Cathy said that you just reinforced about the people side of it is where I feel my real purpose. The engineering foundation helps me understand complex, problems that involve, math or chemistry. But where I really feel like I can add purpose and value is in getting to know people and how they work and how to motivate them. And that's what I feel both challenging and rewarding. And I just finished a lunch conversation with a group of women at ExxonMobil. And one of the questions they asked me was, how did you make that transition to leadership and what have you learned? And I guess the thing that I've learned is, all of us as humans are alike in that we want to feel valued and we want to have purpose in what we do. And we all have different roles, and we sometimes assume that others are different than us in that way, but that's not the case. But then in other ways, everyone's unique and has different desires, different strengths. And so trying to figure out what that intersection is of where we're all alike and where people have their, unique traits is what I find most interesting. And I think most people would say, that's really what you spend your time on as a site manager? And the answer is yes. That's what I spend, at least for my time and my energy. That's where I spend my time. I guess the other aspect that I always think about is the role model I can play as both a female and as a mother of 3. So I have a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 3.5-year-old, because I had a baby when I was 40, like a crazy lady. And so trying to always think about what kind of role model I can be for others, because we tell each other, Cathy, you kind of talked about, well, I don't know if I can, the piece of, can you do that? Is it the right role for you? And trying to decide, help being an example for other people to say, you can do it. And sometimes people pulled me unwillingly into roles because I was like, no, I have a 2-year-old and 4-year-old. I can't be, an operations leader. That stuff happens 24 hours a day. I've got kids to take care of. And guess what? I did do it. And I was an operations manager with an infant. I was like, how many times have people done that? Not many, but guess what? I showed that you can do it. And so a lot of the purpose that I have found, and I guess what's encouraging to me is that opportunity to be a role model and how much of a difference that makes in other people's lives. And I find that very, very rewarding as a leader.
Thank you, Kate. And the questions are starting to come in from the audience, and I'll flip this over to Kim because it parallels what Kate had closed with. The question is, what are your thoughts on ways to encourage more women to pursue these type of careers?
Jim, can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So really good question for the audience, from the audience, and it talks about, so how can we encourage more women to pursue the careers that you three have?
So there's probably some discussion about this in the workforce planning earlier today, but I think the key is you have to talk to women when they're young, when they're little girls, and they have the same passion that the three of us have. We like math, we like science, we want to be outgoing, we like complex problems, we want to challenge everything. That there is no norm. We want to operate, I think Catherine said her hair on fire. I would say out of the box on top of that. So I think it's important that we be role models in the schools now. We talk about being members of our communities that we work and live in. Now proactively be out there and talking to students in the elementary, the middle schools, and the high schools about the opportunities and STEM programs that are out there for young people. And then I think as you get into the workplace, it's being a mentor, right, for all the young women as they go through those first challenges of how do I be a mom and a chemical engineer? To Kate's point, how do we have a 24/7 job when we can barely sleep because the baby's waking us up in the middle of the night? And it's all doable. It is all very doable, but it's about a support system. And that gets back to what motivates all three of us to want to be in leadership roles, right? You want to establish relationships with people. You want to engage others. You want to collaborate. And as you do that, and as you learn what makes people tick, you can help one another. And you will find as you open up, so you're not facing this challenge of being a parent and a spouse and a great employee by yourself, you'll quickly figure out there are tricks and tips that enable all of us to get through it. So that would be the starting point for my answer. And Catherine or Kate, if you have upgrades.
No, I mean, Kate, I think that, or Kim, I think that was very, very well stated. And I think, it's really about challenging all these preconceived notions about what people can and can't do, regardless of, whether you're female or male or minority. It doesn't really matter, right? And so it's really about recognizing that we're all individuals. And I think Kate talked a little bit about, we have a lot of commonalities, right? There's a lot of things we can all kind of get behind and agree on. And really, I think being able to embrace people that are different, right, than us, right? So, I mean, as leaders, we've probably had people on our team that think just like us, right? Which makes our lives really easy because we know exactly what they're going to say to us. But at the same time, I think if we challenge ourselves to surround ourselves with people that challenge us and think differently, it just creates a lot more space for differences of opinion, and I would argue innovation, right? So, I was doing some tutoring several years ago with kind of intermediate school students, and I was tutoring a young lady who was working on math, and she was struggling, to work through a problem, and I was trying to help her through that, and she said, well, everybody knows girls can't do math, and I was like, oh, that's not true, so we had a long conversation. And so, I think to your point, Kim, I think at that middle school age, something happens where people start to believe some of these, stereotypes that just aren't true. So I think anywhere we can step in there and go, girls can be great at math, right? Or, anything. And the same applies to, of course, men as well. But really kind of giving them that confidence that, yeah, you can do it, and I think, I would say, what I've observed is you have a lot of women that really struggle with that confidence, right? So I think anywhere you can kind of step in and help, I think we all said we had somebody that pushed us to take that risk and take that step. I think inherently we tend to need that a little bit more, I think. So when we can touch people early in their careers and give them that boost of confidence, I think that really helps.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, two more thoughts. One is, I think any of us that sit here and say we don't have negative self-talk, even that goes on today to say, I'm not good enough, you're not doing it all, you're not the best mom, spouse, site manager, all at the same time, we'd be lying if we said we didn't have some of that negative self-talk. But I think what I've learned over time is I can quickly correct that to say, you're doing a good job. You've got a solid relationship with your husband, your children respect you, you're raising good adults, and your plant's running well, you've got good connections with your people, and kind of learn how to have that encouragement within, I think is something, and the earlier people start to learn that, to your point, Kim, I think the better those are, and that confidence is real and true, to your point, Kathy. I think the other thing that I've learned is, we've grown up in a world that has been more male dominated, and still is in some cases. And what I've learned is I don't have to do each role the way the male that came before me did it. I can do it my way. I got to leave and go make chicken nuggets at some point every day. And I'm okay doing that. And maybe the male before me didn't need to go make chicken nuggets. Maybe they did and just didn't talk about it. But I can do it my way, and I've been rewarded for being authentic. And I think that makes me approachable. It makes people know that, I have a real world, a real life outside of work. And I think that adds some loyalty to the point around, having a support system. Absolutely. My team is always willing to step in and help me. And when there's times in life that you have a lot of personal challenges, and we all go through those ups and downs, we need help. And by creating those relationships that Kim and Kathy have mentioned, you really set yourself up to have a strong team and a very rewarding career, even though you've got a full life.
Totally agree.
Just excellent discussion on that. I can tell you at San Jacinto College, when representatives of your companies, INEOS, Exxon, LyondellBasell is here today, when people from your company, successful people, are in front of our students, it makes all the difference. That mentoring, those words of wisdom, that path to success. And I also heard tutors, so it looks like I'm going to talk to our math professors that are online. Kim, Kate, Kathy, I'll send your emails to our math department. So we've got 3 new tutors ready to go at San Jacinto College. I appreciate your volunteerism.
Hey, that's what I do at night. I've been doing chemistry and algebra too, and all sorts of stuff.
Math is fine, just don't send grammar my way.
Want to loop back to your careers for just a minute. I want to talk about challenges. So as you look back on your career and you think about those challenging times, Kim, can you tell us at a time where you saw this challenge and you kind of worked your way through, and it's now that experience that is foundational for you?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. I think for me, the most challenging assignment I had, and probably the biggest growth that I had prior to COVID, was in 2009 when LyondellBasell went through bankruptcy. I was in a developmental role in finance. I'm a chemical engineer, I'm not an accountant. And I was very concerned. I had this track record of being a significant contributor, and now we're in this unknown territory. There's a lot of consultants coming in, everybody's got a high sense of urgency, and I'm trying to figure out how to help. And I actually fell back to a lot of the leadership traits that we have in the plants and the things that I learned in manufacturing about planning and communication and empowering others and building teams and helping people see a roadmap to success. And what it really forced me to do was to listen and to understand all the different attributes that people could bring to the different streams of work that we needed, and to be more facilitating and empowering and more delegating, and to know kind of when to lead. Maybe it was on the plan or process side, but when to follow when they wanted to talk about, the details of finance and balance sheets and cash flow and things of those likes. And it really, really taught me how important it is for people to see where they're going and the progress, and how important and valuable frequent communication is. And for me, it was a great growth opportunity. And it's helped me as we've had to deal with COVID, because they're very similar timeframes and very unique challenges.
Excellent. So let me ask a question from the audience along this line, and it was maybe Kate, you could take this one. If today you were going to give one piece of advice to you back when you got started, one piece, what would that piece of advice be to a young Kate down up in Arkansas?
I would say, and I answer this question similarly when I'm asked it, but it's always what pops in my head. It's not that I just have a scripted answer. It's really, don't be so hard on yourself. I've always, been a high performer, almost to an extent as a perfectionist at times. And I think that that hasn't necessarily helped me perform my best in all situations. And to give myself a little more grace. And some of that comes with the confidence and experience that we've been talking about. But if I had known that before, and I'm sure in 5 or 10 years, I would look back on this Kate and say the same thing, because it's a constant growth opportunity. It's just go with the flow a little bit more, enjoy life a little bit more, even though I do like to have fun. But try not to be so hard on yourself, and realize you are doing your best, and people appreciate that. And that, my best is good enough. And that showing some of the vulnerability that comes along with being my best, but maybe not being perfect, is actually drives a lot more loyalty and ownership by the people in my organization than me trying to pretend, I've got it all together.
Grace, that's a powerful word. Thanks, Kate. So I want to talk a little bit about community engagement. When I was a new plant manager, a seasoned plant manager said, Jim, the community allows you in their neighborhood. Your job is to be a good neighbor, and that's more than just hiring and paying taxes. So Kim, tell us a little bit about your approach with LyondellBasell and being a good neighbor.
So I think it starts with open, transparent, kind of two-way communication, right? How do you engage and understand what's critically important to them? And how do you partner together? So as you said, we gain our license to operate from our communities. We live in those communities, we're part of them. So we want to be good operators, we want to be safe, environmentally sound, we want our plants to run reliably, but we also want to help improve and strengthen the community. So whether that's junior achievement, pen pals, working with the schools, the seniors organizations, blood drives, whatever it may be, we want to be that part of the neighbor, or that neighbor in the community that helps elevate the community and makes it a stronger community. And then I think, you just have to, as I started with, you have to be really open and listen very carefully to what are their concerns, right? Bring them along in your journey so that they don't have any anxiety or concerns about living in a community with a chemical plant, and knowing that we're here to help build that community and make it better.
Excellent. Thanks, Kim. Cathy, I think you and I met in 2006. Do you remember how we met?
I do. So I was the young plant manager that needed some mentoring from somebody that had been around. Jim introduced me to both ABC and to ECMA. So he came and took me to lunch, and we had a conversation about, what it means to be a plant manager. And Jim's exactly right. You are able to operate in a community at the great, by the community allows you to do that. And being a good neighbor and doing the right things is fundamental to our business, and it's vitally important. So going way back, Jim and I were talking about that. It's hard to believe it's been that long ago, but Jim imparted many words of wisdom, which I certainly took to heart. And I think, kind of echoing Kim's comments, we've been in the industry for a long time. We understand our plants, we understand how they operate. The general community doesn't understand that in a lot of cases. So I think when we take the time to engage them, to communicate very transparently, to explain things in a way that they can understand and ask questions about, it just builds that relationship, right? Because, when you have an incident or an emergency, those relationships really come into play. So much so that people can call you and go, hey, what's going on? Should I be concerned? And I think the time we invest in developing those relationships with our community are vitally important. Absolutely.
We couldn't be more proud of your three companies. Exxon, INEOS, Lyondell, you're involved in the community, listen to the community. So you've just been wonderful around that. So we have 12 minutes left, and we have not talked at all about COVID. I'm kind of happy we haven't, but it's time to have a few questions there. And we do have a polling question for the audience, and that polling question is pretty simple. How many of you are working from home at least 50% of the time? How many working from home at least 50% of the time? Okay, so we're going to get back to that polling question in just a little bit, but I'll go to Kate with this question. Tell us, what does it look like at ExxonMobil? We've been in this COVID water for 6 months now. What is it? What's a day in the life?
And so, clearly our plants have continued to operate, throughout this pandemic. And so our initial focus was on how to protect the operators, how to protect the process technicians, the mechanical technicians, the console supervisors, because, to the points we made earlier about being a good community partner, we had to continue to operate safely and reliably in a way that our community should and could support us moving forward. And so we really had to make sure we protected that part of the organization. So we quickly kind of drew a line around, how do you keep those people separate from anybody else in the organization and provide guidance on the latest science and safeguards, we're using. And then we have varied on our return to work, different positions, different frequencies to really try to manage all this learnings from science around, density and distancing of people. So for me, a day in the life is, I drive to work like I normally would. I put on my mask as I get out of the car. And anytime I'm interacting with people and not in my office by myself, I have on a mask. Most of my days are spent via Zoom, so this isn't weird at all that I'm on Zoom. Because we still have not done a lot of face-to-face meetings. We're starting to think about ways to do that safely now that we better understand as a society what's effective for COVID, but we've still been very careful to protect the critical part of our operations because we do want to keep people healthy and we do want to continue to operate safely and reliably. I would say there's a lot of conversations around how to do that. And there's also a lot of conversations, and we shouldn't skip the fact that, the effect on our economy, especially for the petrochemical industry, has been very real this pandemic just due to a reduction in demand for the type of products that we make. And so we also have a lot of conversations around how to remain competitive in this environment. We know it's not forever, but it's all lasting longer than we ever would have predicted, I think, back in March. And definitely more than anything we've ever hoped for. So it's really around how to stay competitive, but also safe in this environment.
Thanks, Kate. Cathy, we recognize you're at the plant at Bio. You recently finished a turnaround during COVID. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, that's been quite the challenge. So, some of you may know we were in the middle of a massive debottleneck project on our Olefins 2 cracker. And so, in my view, we were kind of 9 months pregnant, right? It was, are we going to go forward or not? So we had a decision to make very early on in the COVID crisis around, do we defer, do we delay, or do we go ahead and move forward? So we made the decision to move forward. And you can imagine that created all kinds of challenges, right? In addition to having the challenges of just doing the project, figuring out how do we do that in a pandemic type of environment. So that required rapid learning on our part to figure out how do we do that. We had, at the peak of it, we had 5,000-6,000 contractors on site working on the project. So it's a lot of practical things. And if you look back in retrospect, I guess the perspective that I have is, our business is risk management and safety day in, day out, every day, right? So, from my perspective, COVID is another risk that we have to figure out how do we mitigate and manage, right? And so kind of back to what Kate said, it's really about keeping our people safe first, right? So, we developed some, protocols and procedures very early on, very, very transparent communication. We were seeing on the ground floor, the symptoms and the viruses changing. We were obviously following all the CDC guidance, but we were seeing some different things and we responded to those very quickly. So I can't speak enough about our medical team that we have here. So we were able to manage through this huge exercise, keeping everybody safe and making sure that we're protecting people. So kind of, we have a lot more people back on site probably maybe than Kate does at this point, just because of the situation that we found ourselves in. But it's kind of the new norm, right? So masks, you're not doing the big group gatherings anymore. You're doing a lot. We got really comfortable with Skype and Zoom and a lot of the remote technology. So, I think it's turned into a bit of the new normal. You come on site every day, you're going to get your temperature taken, you're going to have a mask on. It's kind of it's a new she culture for us. So I think, at least our plant, and I suspect a lot of the other petrochemical facilities are very similar. We've managed it. We've developed systems and we're constantly learning. So it's actually been really helpful for me to be able to talk to people, friends, family, community members about having to work through that, because, if you're sitting in your house and only watching the news, it's terrifying, right? So I think being able to talk to people real world about how do you manage these things and how do you respond to them and how people can in fact be safe, I think that helps a little. It gives a little bit of balance to, some of the things that people are hearing.
Over to Kim, and I don't mean to tap into intellectual property for Lyondell. I wouldn't do that, but you have a key learning that you could share with us.
As it relates to COVID?
Yes.
Facts are facts, so pay attention to the science and be flexible. For us, this started on January 26th. I'll never forget, it was our first meeting because we have assets in Asia. And I remember it was wear masks, don't wear masks, wear masks. So I think it's really important to follow the science, right? And to understand that you have to be flexible and you have to help people understand where you're grounding your decisions in.
Well, and I think recognizing too that everybody responds to these things differently too. So there's a whole lot of personal sensitivity to, you don't know what people's situations are outside of work. So I think we've had to kind of do a whole different level of analysis around not only managing the facts, which I think, Kim is absolutely right on, but trying to meet people where they are in terms of, their own concerns around themselves and their immediate families.
Yeah, and I think to that point, pick the issue of masks, right? That's been a divisive issue in society. All the racial tensions, that's been very divisive. Into elections, that's divisive. So I think as leaders, the other thing that I've learned is really to look for common points and where we can be collaborative and inclusive is really important, because if not, to your point about watching the news, there's a lot of divisive issues in our world right now. And when we are trying really hard to keep people focused on being safe, from their own personal standpoint, but also running our facilities safely, divisive issues are distractions, people to perform at their best. And so I think it's been a challenge as a leader to just recognize that, not pretend that they're not there, but to respond and look for points of commonality, collaboration, and inclusiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Well, you saw the poll results, and 2/3 of the people work at least 50% from home. If we'd have had this discussion a year ago, I think we'd have bet against that we would never get there. So it tells you how we can change and adapt and move successfully. We've got a few minutes left, and we had a chance to look at your mission statements of your three companies. Very impressive mission statements. There's three things that are foundational in your mission statement: sustainability, safety, and continuous improvement. So I'm going to ask you each a quick question on that. So Cathy, what does sustainability look like what's your vision out in the future? What's that look like in our industry?
Well, so I think it's really around understanding kind of the cradle to grave mentality, right? So, we've all grown up to make products and, they leave our gates and they go into other things, right? And historically, going back in time, that you lose sight of it after that. So I think it's really around thinking about how do you look at that asset from the very first molecule to the very last molecule. So it's things like, how can we bring materials back in and recycle? How can we become more efficient? How can we think differently about the world? And I think given the globalness of the economy now, we're impacting our neighbors in, the Far East or in India, that I don't know that we always had that view, right? So I think it's really important to be a global member of the community, as opposed to just thinking about our own parochial view. And it's really understanding, what the big triggers are in different parts of the world, right? And I think, our business is known for our innovation and our creativeness. I think you just pointed to it, Jim. It's like, look how we've managed to somehow keep all these assets and businesses running in an unprecedented environment. And I think it'll be the same around sustainability. I think we have to challenge ourselves to push the envelope in terms of what we can do, and I think, we have a lot of brilliant minds and a lot of great ideas that I think will help us to get there.
All right. Thanks, Cathy. Kim, I'm going to give you the safety question. Your company, impressive safety results. How'd you get there?
Thank you. I mean, safety is a core value for us, and I'm sure it's a core value for INEOS and ExxonMobil. We're the chemical industry, right? It's important to all of us. And we're proud of our safety performance, but we're never satisfied, right? We can always do better, because it's about everybody going home the same way they arrived every day. And we haven't achieved that true goal zero yet, but we will. But to the comments that all three of us have made throughout the day, the key aspect of safety is getting people's hearts and minds. You have to have both. You have to have that critical engagement across the organization. People need to be, open to communicate their concerns, and you need to hear them. And then the other thing is, you need to put around hearts and minds a management system that you audit, that you show your progress, that you look for your gaps, and you strive for that continuous improvement. Because safety, it's not a race. There's no end destination, right? It's a constant thing that you have to keep that fear of complacency away from you. And you have to strive every day and to protect yourself and those around you.
Thanks, Kim. Well, it looks like we're going to have to have that as our closing comment, which appropriately, we end on safety, which is very common for an industry that we're all proud of. So on behalf of Economic Alliance and San Jacinto College, Kim, Cathy, Kate, thank you so much. You made my job really easy. I just sat back and listened to your wisdom. Thank you for your leadership in our community. And I look forward to seeing you in person. So with that, Chad, I'm going to flip it back to you.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you moderating. And this has been one of the best petrochemical leadership panels I think we've ever had. I really appreciate y'all participating in the great conversation that you had in the middle of what is obviously unprecedented kind of times is for our industry and business along the ship channel. So thank y'all so much. We really, really appreciate it.